Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. We got a special episode tonight, and I can't wait to launch into this. Before we go too far, though, I'd like to introduce my guest, Jessica Mason. Jessica, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I am so happy to do this one. You know how excited I am about
Yeah,
it.
this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, I'm familiar with her work. I'm a big fan of Mary Shelley's School for Monsters, the award-winning graphic novel.
Well, thank you.
But for those of us that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what you're mostly known for?
I'm probably mostly known for Mary Shelley's School for Monsters at this point. We had a great run this year. The first hardcover graphic novel is La Llorona and the Machine. We've got a group of a supernatural shell, Mary Shelley, who gathers her team, and I'm doing a terrible job, guys. Gathers her team together. There are other monsters. They rescue monsters who are in peril. And in the first book, they have to go after La Llorona, who's been trapped in a video game. So they are going to get her out. But it is very inspired by Mary Shelley and her love for the monster. Yeah.
What a great series. And I want to mention too, I follow your Substack. You do the Monster of the Week, right?
I do Monster of the Week, and I'm actually having a really good time doing that. So I try every week to drop a post on Monday, and I'm exploring a different monster or mythological creature from folklore, and I do it from the perspective of Necro, or the Book of the Dead, from Mary Shelley School for Monsters. And so usually one post will be kind of diving into that monster, talking about it, and then the next post will be a made-up folklore or short story about that monster that I have made up. So it's been a lot of fun. So
nice. I appreciate that you use your Substack for creative writing, which is what I also try to do, and not for just one more advertising source.
Yeah, it's definitely the reason I went over to Substack. Was I was a little burnt out on the newsletter, but I still wanted to keep the newsletter, keep contact with people. And I was like, I really wanted to write short fiction. I wanted to research a lot of monsters. So
you come by it honestly, right? You are the resident monster expert. We're going to talk tonight about the top 11 Frankenstein adaptations. The first thing I'd like to point out to the viewers is this is sort of a broad interpretation of adaptations. We just love to gas on about our favorite things, right? So this has been a really fun list to make, and I think there's going to be a couple of surprises on here. So let's dive right in, shall we? Our number 11, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Can you tell us a little bit about what was the first thing that drew you to this film?
Well, I came to it late because I know a lot of people would go. I remember my parents told me how my dad said he went to a midnight showing of it and told me about how, everyone they were acting it out. They were, spraying each other, with the squirt guns and the umbrellas, and everyone's doing the callbacks. And
right.
It sounded really great to me. And I watched it as a teenager. And when I first watched it, I was like, not impressed because, I was a teenager. I'm like, what was all the hype about? And then I watched it again, a decade later, and it's hilarious. The whole thing is so fun. And I just this last year went to my first live performance of it, and it was just really great. And it went for a friend's birthday, and it's subversive, but just in a fun way. And I don't know, just everything about it. And I mean, Tim Curry, come on.
Yeah, how do you not love Tim Curry? And also the music, right, is a strong musical score will live on for years. And I think there's probably not a better example than Rocky Horror. I mean, here we're still talking about it now.
Yeah, the music's amazing, and the time warp is so fun. I mean, it's just,
and I guess you could also make a pretty solid point. This might have been one of the early cosplay inspirations, because I know this midnight showings, well, at least, one or two of the ones I've seen have had people that were dressed as characters.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I can't think. I mean, I'm sure people more versed in cosplay than us will go back further than Rocky Horror Picture Show. But yeah, where people actually gathered and, went to the nines. I mean, my friend, dressed as, Frankenstein. It's a lot of fun. It's like everyone's dressed up, and yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, and because I was thinking that. Well, we're talking the 70s here, right? If I'm not mistaken. And, in those days, now, of course, hey, we did have Star Wars was already out and things like that, but it wasn't quite a thing yet to dress up as characters. So
no, not to dress up from films and things. Yeah, I don't think it was at all.
So that said, man, if any of our cosplay friends want to chime in and correct us if we got
exactly.
please feel free to do so in the comments. Well, I thought that one was a great pick, but I also want to talk about this next one. This is our number 10. That is The Curse of Frankenstein. And this is an interesting choice also, right? What was your favorite thing about this one?
Well, I like that this one focuses much more on like Victor Frankenstein's evilness. He is a true villain in it. And the monster is very creepy looking. The makeup's like mishappen, and it's just a strange makeup. And so I mean I love how the you know Vic the doctor is really a bad guy. You know, he's pushing it even further than the doctor in Mary Shelley's book. And yeah, so that's like I like kind of brings it back to that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things about Dr. Frankenstein is that he's always sort of portrayed a little bit like a misunderstood genius, and that
Yeah.
he's playing God. And that is why, you know, going back to 1931, that was really controversial at that time. And they had to cut a little bit of the script. I was reading some articles. You know, I knew you were going to be on the show, Jessica. I knew you were going to be an expert, so I wanted to be.
Oh God,
I wanted to be.
I'm going to let you down. I'm going to let you down tonight.
Well, the thing they said was the original. Everybody knows the line, "It's alive."
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But what he says, it's along the lines of like, "It's alive. I'm a god."
Yeah.
Because he has brought life. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
You've got to cut that right out. Because, of course, 1931, that would have been a very controversial line.
Yeah, I didn't even know they cut that line. So you're the expert now.
Well, that's one of the few things I know. And, you know, I will say that I'm a fan of almost all of the adaptations that we're talking about here tonight. And I particularly love ones like this that sort of emphasize the more villainous nature of the doctor. Because you're right, some of them he's not really as villainous.
No, he's made a mistake, and he.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
he. I mean, yeah. He's made a mistake, and he has to. I mean, he is. A lot of times, the doctor is villainous, but a lot of them, it's this. It's like you kind of feel for him because he's let this creature out of the bottle, and now he's got to rein it in. And he seems like he's kind of a protagonist sometimes. And yeah, so for this one, yeah.
I totally agree with that assessment.
Or he gets redeemed by the women characters, which I always think is unfair.
Yeah,
unfair. Like they're trying to tell him you shouldn't do this. It's like but they always seem the fact that the woman isn't Elizabeth, like she's in peril. It's like okay, and so now he has to rescue her from this monster. And even though he created the monster, so
as far as the makeup effects, let me ask you: do you prefer the sort of classic 1931 version, or do you prefer the sort the later versions are more grotesque? I think we would both agree.
Yeah, there's I have a soft spot in my heart for the classic appearance of the monster, but I think the monster can really be anything. I mean, I do like a more grotesque monster,
I do too.
but I mean, my favorite Frankenstein movies are more like some of the comedies. So I go back and forth. It depends. Because
we're gonna pick up one of those.
If it's too gross, I'm kind of not. I have a movie in here where the monster is very gross. So we're
Well, I'm very curious to talk to you about our number 9 here. This is The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
Yeah.
Now, this is a little bit more of a modern take. Jessica, I have not seen this one. Can you give us a little synopsis?
Yes. And speaking of the gross monster, here we are. This is very, he gets very gross. So yes. So in this, you start with the angry black girl, and she has, she's very smart. She's the one girl from her neighborhood who is going to the fancy school. She's smarter than her teachers. But she's experienced a lot of death in her family, including the killing of her brother. And her brother was in a gang, and there's a lot of gang violence in her neighborhood. And because of the death around her, she is trying to cure death. So she has this secret lab where she has snatched her brother's body and snatched a bunch of other people's bodies that have been killed in these shootings. And she's trying to reanimate her brother. And I don't want to give away too much, but another death occurs, and it motivates her to really go fast. And she brings a version of her brother back to life. And I think this movie plays a lot of what it really captures this essence from Mary Shelley's novel, where the monster is not necessarily monstrous until he's being rejected or he's afraid and then it just starts to escalate, and the monster starts killing out of misunderstanding, or people reacting to him, and then him being afraid, and then he's very big and violent. So it is a horror movie. There is a lot of violence and death in this movie, but I just thought it was really well done, very thoughtful, and just, it was a lot of fun too. I mean, yeah, but yeah,
sounds good.
And it was, I think it was the director's debut film, if I'm not mistaken either. Bomani J. Story.
Okay.
So I definitely think it's well worth it. A lot of people on Rotten Tomato do as well, so I'm not alone. I think it just came out last year. It's on Shudder right now. I think.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So if you have Shudder, I think it's on a bunch of other platforms too, but I know it's on Shudder.
I'll track that one down. It looks pretty cool.
This is one of my favorite new ones that came out recently. So I really think when a Frankenstein adaptation story is done, if the anger is there, and for being on the fringe of society and being thrown out or cast out as a monster in the main character's stories before you reanimate the monster and you're exploring those issues, I think it really hits a lot better. And this does a good job with it.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the track of the newer ones, May. This is our number 8.
Well, May's older, but it's not as old as the 1931.
Right, yeah.
May is one of my favorites from, God, I don't even know. This one came out probably, I'm going to say 15 years ago, maybe. And I have to look it up. I didn't. But basically with May she is a woman who has this lazy eye, and she works at a veterinarian clinic, and all of her interactions, she's very kind of socially awkward as well, but all of her interactions are very strange and off-putting to people. And she is always trying to find a friend. She doesn't have any friends. And she meets a guy. She thinks it's working out. She's too weird for him. He rejects her. And then it gets into a lot of body horror because she starts to try to put together the perfect friend, which involves killing a lot of people. And sewing them back together, because she has this doll in her room and she does the sewing. It's excellent. It deals with that rage of someone who is socially isolated, and strange and kind of outcast. And Lucky McKee did a great job with it. And
I remember this one a little. I think it's Anna Faris is in this one, right?
Yeah, Anna Faris is in it, and so is this other actor. I always forget his name though.
He's Jeremy Sisto.
Yeah. And I fell in love with this movie when I first watched it, and just thought it was one of just so unique and cool. It's a little gore. I don't usually like body horror, but it worked. It was done in this way that I thought was telling me something important. And I thought it dealt with rage, the female rage really well. I think Lisa Frankenstein came out this year, which I did like, but it was dealt with a little lighter and odder. This May I really enjoyed. So yeah,
it's funny. I mentioned it as a more modern movie, and I did look. Well,
it is modern. It is modern.
It's 2002, which I was astonished to think this was 22 years ago. But
I'm in denial. I said 15. I was like, "There's no way."
Yeah. It's a little bit hard to believe.
Well, it was all during that mumblecore, when mumblecore films were out, and so they were blending that with everything, and it just worked really well. It's one of my favorite horror movies. I really enjoy it.
Well, that's saying quite a bit. You have good taste, Jessica.
Thank you.
So let's jump here to the next one. I know you've got some things to say about this.
Oh my gosh, all my favorites. There were so many good. I will say this last year, the last couple of years, there have been some really great Mary Shelley inspired, Frankenstein inspired movies, and Birth Rebirth is so good, in my opinion anyway. Basically I believe I'm going to get it mixed up here. There's a mother who is a nurse. She works in the natal ICU unit, and she has a younger daughter, and her daughter gets sick one day. She has her stay home with a friend. She goes to work. Her daughter has contracted meningitis and dies this horrible death, but her mom's not there. And the other woman, I feel like I'm just worried because I'm going to switch the actresses' names. The other woman who works in the morgue. She's a doctor in the morgue, and she's been doing all these experiments out of her apartment to cure death, basically. Similar theme as Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, that they're both trying to cure death. But is Judy let's see. I don't want to say. I think it's Marin Ireland plays the morgue doctor, and her performance is so. Their performances are great, but her performance is so off-putting in a great way, and she's like reanimated a pig. She has and she steals this woman's the nurse's child's dead body, dragged it back to her house in a suitcase, and she reanimates it. And the mother finds out, and and I'm sorry that I'm going on forever.
No, it's interesting.
And when the mom finds out, she's like, well, I'm staying here. Can't, and so the two of them begin to work together on this experiment and to try to slowly bring this child back to life, but it's not quite her child, so it's this strange, and it gets really dark and sad and funny. And funny is not, it has its moments. It's not funny. I don't want to react. And it's just great. This movie's great.
Not exactly skipping home from the theater on this one.
No, but it goes to the extremes. This one goes to the extremes as well. And I mean, if you are off put by the female body at all, don't watch this. But if you're, I mean, there's some scenes but I don't know who's off put about but more the clinical, things of birth, sex, things like that, not just sexualized female body.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, one of the elements of the Frankenstein myth, as Jessica mentioned, is sort of the misunderstood creature who may not necessarily be a monster.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to bring us to our number 6, Edward Scissorhands.
I mean, who doesn't love Edward Scissorhands?
Who doesn't love it? First off, let me jump right in the water. Would you say this is Tim Burton's best film?
No, because I have another film higher up on this list.
Tell me what it is.
No. I don't know what his best film is. I love almost all of Tim Burton's films. This is one of his best films. This is probably top 3. Yeah.
We do have another film by him on the list, and I was gently asking which one you liked better, but we don't want to spoil it. Maybe we'll save that to that film. But I will say my 2 favorite Tim Burton films are this one, and I love Sleepy Hollow. I love
Sleepy Hollow too.
Do you?
Yeah, it's nice. It's a little bit not. It's not as much as I like Edward Scissorhands, but yeah.
Right. And this is a little bit of a. Well, I almost said it's a curious choice for a Frankenstein adaptation because it isn't really scary in any way. It's probably his saddest film, I think.
It is, but it's just got so much joy and laughter and humanity in it. It probably is his best film, really, one of them at least. It's just that I have other ones that I love a lot too. But but this one, definitely touched my teenage heart, and it's such a wonderful story, and just the way the whole neighborhood is set up, and every single character just plays a perfect role.
Right, they nailed it. Vincent Price.
Yeah. And they didn't make people just arch villains. It was just this neighborhood that accepted him, and then it turned on him. And yeah, it was nice because it was interesting because it was where the monster was up in the castle for so long, but then when they finally came down, everyone embraced him slowly because he had a talent. He could do something amazing. He could cut hair. He could, cut bushes, make bushes. He had an artistic talent, which I think a lot of people accept monsters, or accept people when they're strange, when they can give them something, they have something to offer them. And then the minute they become complicated and, then they reject them and demonize them and go after them and burn down their house and everything like that. The pitchforks come out. Yeah, but no, this is a wonderful film and a great Frankenstein adaptation, I think.
A great choice. Jessica. I was going to say too, I feel like we're leaving something out if we didn't mention the Danny Elfman score.
Oh yeah. Everything.
I'm a big sucker for music themes, and I think you could make a solid point that it's one of the best movie themes ever.
Yeah, it's one of the most recognizable. It's so gorgeous. I mean, you can talk about music better than I can, but yeah, it's a beautiful.
You could make I'll put it this way. Very rarely do I buy a movie soundtrack, but I bought this one. Mm-hmm. And it's probably I'm kind of obsessed with making musical themes lately. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, there's one that's airing right now that people are starting to send me messages about. Please feel free to share your thoughts. It's our Frankenstein themed song.
Oh,
And
I did like the Frankenstein theme song.
oh, did you? Yeah,
Yeah,
we had a
yeah.
terrific time making it.
Yeah, it was
But
wonderful.
I didn't want to hijack the conversation. What I was going to say was Danny Elfman has this kind of haunting and really evocative score, which is not really very monstrous. It's very memorable and sort of what I call sad and beautiful.
Yeah. It was
It's
that's
ice.
the movie, Sad and
Yeah, right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, right. And boy, I tell you, that was one of the times when I first started saying, man, music themes are awesome. I want to try and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us to our next one, and we're going to start veering toward the classics, okay? And it's very tough to find somebody that does not like this movie. And as a matter of fact, it is on YouTube right now. You can watch it for free. This is the original version. You could claim one of the first adaptations of Frankenstein, 1931.
Yeah, my husband just mentioned to me that he was showing me clips of a silent film version of one that I hadn't ever seen. So that was kind of fun to
Yeah,
look
you
at.
notice I quick qualified it because it's
No, I know.
right.
No, I didn't include the silent film version one either, but it was fun to see little clips of it and everything like that. This movie just is probably the first one I saw, like on at some point with my dad probably, or my mom, just watching television. It's just, I mean, there's just these beautiful moments. This one is the great picture that you picked because this is my favorite moment. It's what I remember the most from that film is his interaction with the little girl. Oh, Gary, I don't know. Was the silent film the Edison
Gary,
one?
I'm not 100% sure. Was it the Edison? It may have been. Maybe we should ask Jessica. You said your husband knew it. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe
make him come in out of nowhere.
Yeah.
We'll have to
You
look
can
it up.
phone a friend. Phone a friend.
I'll have to have him send me the clip and I can share it. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, this one, I think you said it the best. There's a lot of really tender moments in this film, and it was really how do I want to say this? Maybe one of the first films that showed sort of the tender side of the monster. And as you know, there's always a huge debate about who is the monster in the film Frankenstein. And people say, well, because of course he's called Frankenstein's monster. But the irony is the doctor is potentially more monstrous than his creation.
Of course. And I think in the novel, it's, pretty, I mean, yes, he's a monster, but it's pretty clear that that's not who the monster is, and this scene always reminds me of, the whole part in the novel where he's watching this family outside their house. He's like, basically has made himself like a little hole by the side of their house that he's like viewing them in and trying to figure out what it is to be human, what it is to be part of a family. And this scene kind of always makes me think of that. And, Angry Black Girl did a good job with that too, because they had not only was the monster originally part of their family, he was watching them through this hole in the wall. And it really was, evocative of that sequence in the novel which is my favorite part of the novel, actually. But yeah, where you see that the monster's just trying to figure out how to live in this world that he has been brought into, like we all do.
Yeah,
and the world is like not having him. And yeah,
well said. When you said that, I'm going to go off track for just a second. Okay. When you mentioned watching the family through the hole in the wall, you remember a 70s horror movie called Bad Ronald?
No. But
just real quick,
go look it up.
It was a story of a young man with an overbearing mother who was controlling him, and he was obsessed with this young girl. And somebody was bullying him in a parking lot or something, and he pushes one of the girls, and she falls down, hits her head on a cinder block, and she dies. Well, so the mother hides Ronald behind the wall of the house and says, "You can't ever come out." And of course, the mother passes away, and he's in there for years and spying on the family and sort of living in this weird fantasy world. If you want to check that out, that's Bad Ronald. It routinely wins awards for worst TV horror movie. But just by the explanation of it, I think you might kind of dig it.
I might like the worst movie.
Yeah, well, I say that in the sense that, and I'm in no way disparaging these movies.
Yeah,
I tend to love bad horror movies, just in the sense that, and I'm not saying, well, there's no such thing as a bad movie. I get it that there's a bad movie, but bad 70s horror movies tend to have a certain charm that they're sort of roughly crafted, but
especially the 70s ones.
yeah, it's really good. If you ever check it out, I'd love to hear what you thought of that one.
And to answer Gary's question, yes, it was the Edison one that I was looking at last night. Yeah.
Nice. Well, the next one you picked, this is our number 4, and this is one of my all-time favorites. And I mean, this one would be very high on my own list. The Bride of Frankenstein. So
I mean, for the
before
hair,
we dive in,
for the hair
yeah.
alone.
Tell me what your favorite things are about this movie.
Well, you should start this
Oh,
time.
okay, I'll take
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
You know, in my case, I actually saw this one before the original. There was I used to live in Easton, Pennsylvania, and after school each day, they had this Dr. Chiller's thriller feature or something, and it had old Universal monster movies, and you could watch them from like 3 to 5, I think it was. And I can remember I would run home from school to see what the current movie
Yeah.
was.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I can remember this one. Creature from the Black Lagoon was in there.
yeah.
Phantom of the Opera was in there, and that was my first exposure toward what we now call the Universal monsters.
Yeah.
What I remember is that, particularly, she was definitely one of the more misunderstood creatures. Like, she didn't even really want to be brought to life, and she was a little hostile, kind of.
Well, and she was just being born. You
Right.
know, that was what it was. So they bring her to life, and then like, oh, here's this other monster. He wants to be your buddy, and she is really kind of a child, so she's just reacting, and that escalates really quickly.
Yeah,
to,
right.
like, the monster gets rejected, gets angry, and then, I don't want to spoil Bride of Frankenstein for anyone, but it has been around a while.
Yeah, 90 years. I think you're
Yeah,
okay on the
and
statute of limitations.
and basically it's like we're all gonna die together. And if everyone would just calm down for a minute and let her like develop into a fully baked being.
Right.
It's like such a crazy fast reaction to a woman rejecting you. It's like, oh, you don't want me for this first second of your life? I'm gonna destroy us all.
I'd want to make a quick point too of this one. They had started to improve things like set design and character design. And what I mean by that, she was one of the first ones who had, well, first of all, the original Frankenstein definitely had this great design. Okay, we can all agree on that. But when there was Bride of Frankenstein, Jessica mentioned she had this wild hair. It's got like a lightning bolt in the side of it, kind of. She had sort of this flowing operatic sort of dress. It was a striking figure. And I can remember seeing that as a kid being like, wow, so that's a monster right there,
Yeah, she's cool too. She's the coolest look out of all of them, I think. With the, and also the Frankenstein's monster got to show his humanity a lot more in this movie. And, you got to see him more and see his wants and his needs and things like that, which was interesting. And you got to see, I think this one doesn't this one start with Mary Shelley hanging out, talking with Percy and Byron? I think it does. I want to say
I don't remember.
I think it starts out with them kind of continuing the story. Like, this is what happens after. And then it goes back into this and to the story. And, you also get to see Dr. Frankenstein try to redeem himself, and I think, right? Because he's being sucked back. Yeah. Thank you, Gary. It does. That is how it starts. And then and Dr. Frankenstein gets a chance to get some redemption as well in this story. And the monster is like, go live,
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I got to say thanks for picking this one, Jessica.
Yeah.
It's a great one. And she's Ilsa Lancaster.
You're in charge of the actors' names.
Yeah.
I am the worst.
Actually, tell you, maybe I'll ask Gary that question. He seems like he might. I think it's Elsa something. But I remember one of the concerns is, and obviously, in this time frame, hey, you're concerned about being typecast. And, let's be honest, this is a very visual type of look for an actress. It'd be easy to be typecast, I would think. So
for sure.
Let me ask you a question, again, slightly off topic. If you were first of all, would you ever be interested in starring in a horror movie in a role like this?
Oh yeah, it's the only thing I would do. I would be like, typecast me, please.
Gary, that's a great comment. So famously controversial as her dress was flattering. And, I will say that I do kind of remember that being a young fella.
It was a controversy.
I didn't know there was a controversy.
She's a sexy monster.
She was kind of a sexy monster.
Yeah, she's sexy. Except she's got her arms all wrapped up.
Yeah. I'm not sure that detracts from it, though.
I know, right? That adds to it.
It's all part of her mystique. And I remember she also had kind of like if I remember, she like hissed like a cat, kind of.
Yeah, she's like, it
she
was
made a noise.
Yeah, she
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that was her reaction, and then she screamed a little bit. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, our next pick, this is going to be our number 3, and this is a pretty good one too. Maybe unconventional, but I'm curious to know more about what you thought. Here we're going to talk about Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein. What can you tell us about this, Jessica?
Well, it's Gene Wilder, and
yeah.
I mean, I love this movie. This movie's very funny. It's not only is it funny, but it has like really good set design.
Yeah. Great camera work.
And the acting's great, and they've got a Bride of Frankenstein, and it just, everything about this movie is enjoyable and entertaining. I watched it like a couple months ago with my kids. They loved it. It's just a I don't know. He's probably one of my favorite Dr. Frankensteins.
Yeah, I love him, and also I think, is that Marty Feldman was Igor?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Igor. Remember he objects.
Yeah, Igor. Yeah, Igor. That was like, Igor is hilarious, and it's just got this really, this quick wit, very charming. I don't know.
And delivered in sort of a loving way. You could tell he really loves the source material.
Yeah. And it was, I don't know. I think this one's timeless. Some of the jokes probably are like, I don't actually know. I laughed pretty much at everything still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great pick. Great pick. I met Max Brooks once at a comic convention.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was the author of World War Z. And by the way, he was giving us the speech. Hey, I have developed this movie, and actually, it was the book World War Z. For viewers that don't know, has very little to do with the movie World War Z. The only two things that are similar are the title.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
because I didn't read the comic, which is weird. But
this was the book is that there is a comic book version, but the World War Z, I even hesitate to call it a novel because it's a collection of short stories depicting each person's perspective on the zombie apocalypse, and it's really well done. Like it shows the Chinese defending the Great Wall, and there's the Battle of Yonkers in New York. It's really good stuff, and it has kind of a military flavor. The movie has that a little, but it'd be fair to say there are almost no elements from the book that are in the movie.
That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Well, yeah, I'm going to check out that book, actually. I was trying
highly recommended.
The other thing is Madeline it's Kahn, right? Madeline Kahn.
Yeah,
she's
Madeline
in this,
Kahn.
And she's amazing in this, in Young Frankenstein. She's probably my favorite part. But she always entertains me. Well, no, Gene Wilder's my favorite part. But then,
well, and I think Terry Garr's in there too.
Yeah, Terry Garr is in there too.
And that was, depending what some people might think, it could have been almost the peak of her career, right? She was just coming off of Close Encounters.
Yeah, wait.
Or maybe it was Young Frankenstein first.
I think Young Frankenstein first. Okay, I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh God.
But she was kind of the hot actress of the time.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah, this is a terrific pick. And for viewers that have not seen Young Frankenstein, please check this out. You won't be disappointed. The whole thing's shot in black and white. And like Jessica said, it's got this great set design, and the castle's really cool, and the lab's really cool, and the performances are fantastic.
And I think right now there's a documentary about Gene Wilder that just came out on Netflix. I could be wrong. So you could kind of, tie it together.
Yeah.
Learn a bit about him, and because he just does strange things. He's an actor, just has his own timing, his own way of doing things. He approaches it differently than a lot of actors, and he does that a lot in here too, which is fun.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I read an interview describing him as Willy Wonka. I got the right guy, right? He was, and if you've seen that, he comes out to greet the audience, and he does like a somersault in front of everybody.
Yeah,
and that was not in the script. And they said, well, why did you do that? And he said, well, I wanted to have sort of this stunned look on everybody's face. And that's exactly what he got. Like, if you watch the movie, and it's, what's 60 years later, but everybody's like, what is that guy doing?
We didn't even know he could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool.
So we're getting farther up the list here, and I'm very interested to hear about your number 2, because a little bit of an unconventional choice. I think I know why you love it, but tell us why you love the movie Frankenweenie.
Well, first of all, I have a dog. second, second of all, I have kids, and I have a kid who I'm pretty sure if her dog died, this would be a kind of a solution. But I also write middle grade, and I write middle grade horror, and well, I'm just gonna say, stories for all ages, young people. And this, to me, is Frankenweenie is just, I'm surprised. Is this number 2?
Number 2.
I've watched this one the most, so it probably is my favorite one. But I just love, it's a simple story. This kid loves his boy. Oh my God. This kid loves his dog. He's kind of strange, good at science. His dog dies, and of course he's going to try to bring his dog back to life. And what I like about this movie is that his dog comes back to life, and he's weird, but he's his dog still. He's not like, acting weird, crazy or anything. And what I just love about this movie is there's a secret world going on with the kids. Like, they all kind of figure out that he's bringing back animals. And so they're all trying to bring their dead animals back to life. And it just becomes this like, it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier.
Sort of course.
Yeah. And it works up to this like climax, and it's just really it's just so good.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of animation that I love, and the music's great. It's just artistically a wonderful film.
Okay. And now I sort of saved this, but I want you to expand on that a little bit. So we talked about, it would be fair to say are these two slugging it out for your 2 favorite Tim Burton movies?
No, Frankenweenie is my favorite Tim Burton.
Okay. So you say
I love I think Frankenweenie is my favorite. There's a lot of other ones that I love, but this one touches my heart for some reason in a very
on a personal level.
Yeah.
It does have some of the what I call the signature Tim Burton look.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then there's all that, it's like when people talk like about Nightmare Before Christmas, there's the dog in Nightmare Before Christmas, there's the dog in this one, and then Corpse Bride. They connect these characters through those 3 films a lot because there's a lot of similarities in looks and things like that. Like, are they all connected for real, intentionally? And I can only imagine if you're spending so much time creating these characters in this art that of course they're somewhat connected, and I'm a huge fan of the style of animation and the storytelling of the teams on all 3 of those films I just mentioned. So, yeah.
I think this is a great choice. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's been a while since I've seen this one, but I honestly, I might have forgotten about it. So I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Well, sometimes you don't want your Frankenstein story to be depressing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I do cry in this movie, but it's not because I feel like some sense of existential horror or dread, or, I just cry because it's very beautiful. It's a beautiful movie.
Very carefully crafted.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so well done. I'm almost tempted to forgive Tim Burton for what he did to Planet of the Apes.
Oh, he did.
I say almost tempted to forgive him.
I believe my husband was a PA on that movie.
Gotcha. Well, I don't blame your husband directly or anything.
Well, he's directly to blame. I mean, I don't know. I don't hate any of the Planet of the Apes movies, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
I tell you, I think we may have just figured out our topic for the next show.
Oh my goodness. I'll have to have my daughter as a guest speaker.
Oh, we'd love that. I'm a diehard Planet of the Apes guy.
My daughter for a long time would just go around and go, apes together strong.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Man, that's a good one too. I love, again, not to get too far off the track, but the elements of that one where makes perfect sense, where they're making a cure for dementia, right? Makes sense why they would do that and test it on apes. And then I love how the very ending closing credits, the guy's coughing and there's a little bit of blood. And you realize they just started a human plague.
Yep.
Makes total sense.
No, it's great.
Total sense lore wise.
The Lord works really well in that one. I just watched the last one in the theater. I'm still processing that one, but it was interesting.
Yeah, you didn't ask
I didn't not like it. I'm not like
they're okay, right? Like that first one. When I say the first one, I mean the first of the let's call them the Andy Serkis
Yeah.
movies.
No, I've liked all those so
The
far.
first
And
one
then
was great. The second one was okay, and I'm still trying to get through the third one. I promise I will, but that's always like sort of a warning shot for me if I can't finish a Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh yeah, and have you seen the most recent one yet?
No, Kingdom. They did
Yeah.
just put on Hulu. It's like a preview of how it was
Yeah,
made,
yeah.
and it looks like it could potentially be cool.
It's very interesting, and I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But
Okay.
it is interesting to play it the other way around, where the humans are now lower on the evolutionary food chain, and the
Yeah.
apes are higher, and how those two things come together. There's a lot of interesting questions being asked in that movie for sure. I of course, I liked it. I had a good time in it. There was a lot of kids in the screening. Not when I say kids, a lot of like, the screening I was in was very loud, which was fine, I
That's a
guess.
good idea. Yeah.
I mean,
And I love Andy Serkis, you might have
yeah,
sensed. I think it's cool that he has sort of become the go-to guy for motion capture acting.
yeah. It's just
You know what I mean? He was
he's the guy.
Gollum, he was Caesar. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
That's a
is
cool
weird.
thing.
Everyone else, there's a few guys out there going, "Why can't I ever get a chance?"
Right, exactly. All right, now, hey, for our number one, we have a great one picked, and I can't wait to hear your 2
I
cents.
forgot
on
what we
this one.
picked.
Ready, audience?
Oh, I didn't.
This is the new one.
Yep.
It's Poor Things.
Yes.
A little bit of a controversial choice. So what I want to know first is, tell me why you ranked it so high.
Well, can be controversial because for me, I went to this movie. It's based on a book, and I mean, just first of all, Emma Stone, just like, you can't stop staring at her the whole movie. Like, she does such an amazing job
Yeah, I love her.
becoming Bella. Weirdly enough, when I was watching Birth Rebirth, the actress who plays the doctor in the morgue has a similar energy, like in a more kind of negative, off-putting way, which I found strange. But they both were very brilliantly acted, I thought, by both actresses. But I mean, Emma won the Oscar. There's a reason for it. She became this character. The costume design is out of this world. The set design is amazing. You're always like, you're in a totally different world, but yet you feel like you're grounded somewhere. William Dafoe is just like a strange doctor, has all this odd things going on. And, I know there's been some criticism about this movie from some, because I find this movie to be very feminist, but some feminists don't feel this movie to be very feminist because it's that whole women can only become their full self through their sexuality, and when men make films about women. But I just feel like Emma was a producer on this movie. She was the main actor. And I think sexuality is part of being a woman and becoming fully formed, I guess. But it was just fun. It was a great movie like, such a strange idea. It's so bizarre to me that it got made. Like, it was so weird. I didn't even like Yorgos's other movie, The Lobster, that much. But I think that's his
I don't think I realized it was the same guy. How about that?
I think it is. I hope it is, or I'm just saying it wrong. But every decision in that movie was very unique. It was something different. It was so fresh, and it was, inspired. I just feel like Mary Shelley would have appreciated it as a human being. I think she would have watched it, and like, her sexuality was a very big part of herself. And it was just interesting to watch an actress have to go from like being an infant in a fully grown body and go through all of those stages in a movie, all the way through all the human experiences until you get to the end and she is the being that she is. And I'm not going to ruin that for anyone, but yeah, I couldn't not have it not be number one. I think it is obviously not a straight it's not a Frankenstein adaptation necessarily, but
I see why
I mean, it's still a man created a monster and it came to life. I think it's an adaptation. I mean, it was based on another book, but the book, when you have those things going on, it was just great. And as her being, what's always fun about the main character being a monster is they're never the monster, they have, and what's great is every man in her life is trying to control her through the whole story, except for one. There is one that's just trying to hang out by her, I guess. And And it's just interesting to watch her evade them, and do it in such a unique and strange way. So I loved it.
I think it's a great pick, Jessica. And
Yeah.
you brought up a couple of really cool points, which I'd like to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly in the sense of how it may have influenced your work. I love Mary Shelley, and I just think that she's totally kick-ass.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will say things like, let me think how I want to start this. First off, people say things like, hey, well, she is the true creator of the horror genre. But
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes point out, I think Mary Shelley may have invented sci-fi.
She's called the mother of science fiction.
Yeah. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, she's writing along with all these other great writers, like right during the Industrial Revolution. And I would compare the Industrial Revolution, the way these writers and artists are feeling, is kind of the way we are right now as writers with AI and bioengineering and CRISPR. Like CRISPR and AI in particular, because both of those technologies I'm obsessed with, but I'm more obsessed with CRISPR, but still, they have the ability to and are transforming society so rapidly that we can feel fear, anxiety, everything. And I think in the Industrial Revolution, that is what those writers were feeling, because suddenly things were moving very quickly. And suddenly, you might be sitting watching someone do an experiment in front of you at someone's, some fancy party, and they're bringing frogs, making frogs, jump with electricity.
When you say, I don't want to interrupt you. When you say CRISPR, are you talking about gene editing?
Yeah, gene editing.
Okay,
sorry,
gotcha.
Chris. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm all like CRISPR, guys. Yeah, gene editing, and I was immediately obsessed with that when that came on the scene, and still am. But my other nerdy hobby is to read science books. So
nice.
Yeah. But yeah. So I mean, so Mary Shelley, created a story that, even though it has a monster in it, it's really exploring her fears, and I think that people's fears of the time around technology.
Mm-hmm,
like the ability that we would have an ability, suddenly humans were able to do so many things with technology that nobody had imagined before. And so I think the book is a lot about that. It's a lot about what, now that humans have this new power, what can they do? Are we going to create life? And I'm sure they were asking that question. And I think that's the fear that drives a lot of that story more than, and that humans themselves will not be good creators, as God is not, some people don't think God is a good creator, but if we start creating life, well, we do create life, but you know what I mean? Like we see how some parents are, and so if we're going to start creating life with these technologies, that's even more, frightening, because who's going to be watching them, especially when you apply that. And now in modern times with AI, it's like, okay, we're releasing, like we could do it with CRISPR as well, but like with just talking about AI, we're releasing something that is sentient, that could become sentient into the world, very haphazardly. And and I think that's where sci-fi, so I definitely think she was, she doesn't get, I still will notice in articles, she doesn't get referenced. They'll be like H.G. Wells and
or Jules Verne.
Jules Verne, who I love both, it's just like, but it's weird to me to mention both of them and not mention Mary Shelley. And, even I will say, I can't believe I'm going to tell the story, but I was at the LA Festival of the Books, and I had this older man come in, and he was, came in like, I know everything about sci-fi and horror that's ever been done, and I'm like, okay. And he starts going on about, he looks at my Mary Shelley book and he goes, Mary Shelley, she was just a kid who wrote a short story. And I was like, and my group with me all just waited for me to say something, because they're like, Jesse. So I tried to, I ignored him the first time, but then he kind of kept going on. And I go, she didn't just write a short story. I go, she wrote a novel called Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's not and he was saying that a man, and I understand that there was a lot of people who said that Percy, her husband, wrote Frankenstein and she didn't. So I think that's what he was implying. But I was like, she wrote a novel. She wrote more than one novel. It's not her only. She wrote The Last Man, which probably could argue started dystopian genre.
Good point. Yeah.
And so she didn't just write Frankenstein. Like, that's not her only thing. And so I had to have a little talk with him in a nice way and let him know that this young woman actually wrote a novel that started a whole genre that he seems to love. So maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe don't come in and it was just so strange, but I don't know his name. So I just thought it was a strange, it's still this misconception that she didn't do it, And so, yeah.
Interesting. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm kind of actually surprised to hear there's somebody like that at one of these types of events. Are usually
I don't think he meant it to be, I wasn't offended by him. I just had to tell him,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he really thought that was true. Yeah. So it was just weird. Yeah. But I do think the reason I even told the story was not to make fun of him personally. It was just to talk about how it's so interesting that a story that we've retold, there's over 60 film adaptations of Frankenstein. We didn't, and it's been retold and retold and retold. And it's even, and if you think of even a lot of horror, there's a lot of horror that's inspired by Frankenstein,
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of sci-fi that's inspired by Frankenstein.
Totally.
And the fact that that was a big reason that I wanted to do a graphic novel for targeting toward 8 to 15-year-olds, so that they hear the name Mary Shelley and they know, it's not I don't teach necessarily in my book, but I do want them to become familiar with this young woman who in her teens wrote this enduring story that we're all still, she was able to grab those themes of loneliness, the fear of playing God, technology, being outcast. When you leave women out of the conversation in creation, what happens? And people still are drawn to that and want to tell a story in that world because it allows them, to explore their own fears, I think, and in a way that is fresh. A lot of these movies are very fresh. They didn't have to use Mary Shelley's Frankenstein as a bouncing off point, but they chose to. Anyway.
Well, and first of all, I think that's a great take on it, Jessica. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
And I went on a little bit.
No, that's what I want you to do. And
okay.
The other thing is that it was even more impressive when you figure she died in something like 1850. When you say technology, there were 60 film adaptations. Film wasn't even invented yet. She wouldn't even be able to imagine what would become of her work.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that's amazing to me.
I mean, who knows what she could imagine? Maybe she had it all figured out.
Maybe, yeah. I shouldn't take that away
right?
From her.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Like when you and I talk about the technology of the 1800s, most people in modern times have forgotten what that was like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, what I'm saying is, I think that makes her actually even more impressive.
Yeah, just to be thinking about this kind of asking those questions, which were important to ask at that time, because honestly, the Industrial Revolution has gotten us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and
it's brought us a lot of great things, but the ability to make things very quickly and in mass quantity is caused a problem for sure. So.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, Jessica, you had one more on your list that was an honorable mention. And before we run out of time, I want to at least bring it up, because this one was one of my favorites too. And it was on that channel that I had mentioned earlier. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yes. Oh my God. I love this one. This was originally in the top 11. And I took, what did I replace it with? I think I replaced it with Angry Girl and Her Monster because it was just so good. I had to have it in there. But this is hilarious and kind of spooky. One of my favorite scenes is when they're running from Frankenstein. Well, and they run into a room and they're like, shut the door. And then they put the bed against the door and they're putting their bodies against it. He'll never get in. And then the door opens out.
Right.
It's so funny. And it's
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
and there was a little series of those too. There was Wolfman, right? And
well, I think they were all in this movie. But yeah, they had a series, but the vampire and Wolfman were in the Frankenstein one as well.
Oh, I guess they were, now that you mention it.
But I think they might have had their own separate, but they definitely, all three of them were in this film.
Gotcha. And was there a mummy one also? I think there might have been a mummy.
There probably is a mummy probably shows up. It has been quite a while since I watched this one, but yeah, I do like it.
Great stuff. I
am going to rewatch this one for my girls because I had kind of forgotten about it. It had been a while since I'd seen it, and it came back into my brain.
I appreciate you mentioning that one because that's one that's on my list too.
And I have to mention the Munsters because my daughter will kill me if I don't. I mean, obviously, The Munsters is a great TV show, and I think Rob Zombie did a movie that I don't know. I can't remember if I know I'm a fan of this TV show. I don't know if I watched the movie actually.
I didn't see the movie, but I remember the TV show.
But yeah, I realized that I always thought, oh, Herman Monster just looked like Frankenstein, but Herman Monster is actually was one of the creations of, like, Dr. Frankenstein was making more than one, I guess, and Herman Monster was one.
Well, and again, I feel compelled to mention here the Munsters theme song, one of the great TV show theme songs. Yeah, and we even have played that song in a couple of bands, and when audiences hear that song, they go bananas.
And I have to tell you a funny story, if we have time.
We do.
So I was very excited for Lisa Frankenstein, and I did enjoy Lisa Frankenstein. It's not on my list because I got traumatized by Lisa Frankenstein because I took my daughters who are 11 and 14 and one of their friends to Lisa Frankenstein thinking it would be PG-13 edgy. I should have known better. It would be kind of edgy, not crazy edgy. And I was wrong. And we get into the third act and I was like, oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
A little too much.
But it was definitely a adaptation that's well worth watching. I just didn't realize it was going to go that far, and I'm still recovering from it. But a female director, Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
And I should have known because Diablo Cody wrote the script, but
interesting.
I just wanted to go see it. So I
didn't realize that was a Zelda Williams thing.
Yeah, Zelda Williams. I think that might be her debut. Is it? Probably. She'll be back. It has cool set design as well. Anyway.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, we are just about to our time, so I'm going to give you the final word here. First off, let me thank you for coming on and sharing your favorite adaptations. One of my all-time favorite guests to interview, and I think you did a terrific job with the analyses.
Well, thank you for having me again. I love coming on the show. I do love doing Holden's 11 on the radio. It is my favorite.
I tell you, you really bring the magic because some of the subjects we talk about are really good ones. But before we go, can we tell the viewers where we can find your work?
Okay. Well, you can find my work at wickedtreepress.com. You can find me on Instagram and Wicked Tree Press. You could get I have another book called Plastic Girl, and that you can get that anywhere. Mary Shelley School for Monsters and I are going to the American Library.
Wait, one second. I'll give you a full layout here.
Oh, thank you.
Ready, go.
Me and this book are going to ALA next week in San Diego. I'm very excited because I'll be at booth 122 if you're going. I'm actually, I guess that these things are a big thing at ALA. You add them to your badges. So I've got a Slay All Day and Monster at Heart One.
Cool.
Yeah. And so what I want to talk about at ALA is on Sunday, June 30th at that event. If you're there at 2:30 at the Comics and Gaming stage, I believe is booth 250. I am doing a event called basically Jessica Mason presents Exploring Monsters. So we're going to be talking about Mary Shelley, monsters, why Mary Shelley. We're going to do a reading from the book. I'm actually handing out free books and signing. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, you can find me at Wicked Tree Press. Oh my God, I don't know what my thing is called .com. And I would love it if you are on Substack to come find me at Monster of the Week. I have a really great time there. And I am releasing my Plastic Girl audiobook once a week from that Substack as well. Did I make sense? I think I got it.
Made perfect sense.
Okay. All right.
I want to say in closing, congratulations on your many successes. I think you really deserve it. And I think your work's terrific. It's an honor to see you again.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. You too. I feel the same.
Oh, perfect. Well, and to the viewers, hey, this has been a special episode. The rest of you guys, I will see tomorrow night when we're going to have a special episode at 10 o'clock in which I'll be interviewing some of the top podcasters and asking people how to make quality podcasts. So other than that, I hope to see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks, Jessica, for coming on the show.
Thanks.
Good night,
everybody. Bye, guys.